The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, 1893. Episode 12. The Final Problem. Welcome back, fellow detectives. After witnessing how government secrets and personal betrayal nearly compromised Britain's national security in the naval treaty case, you might think you understand the scope of criminal ambition and the stakes involved when brilliant minds turn to evil purposes. But today's mystery brings us face to face with the ultimate criminal intellect. A mind so dangerous that even Sherlock Holmes acknowledges it as superior to his own in every way except moral character. Have you ever wondered what would happen when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? When the greatest detective of all time confronts the most brilliant criminal mastermind in history? Prepare yourself for the most consequential case in our chronicles, where the very existence of justice itself hangs in the balance, and where the cost of victory may be higher than anyone is prepared to pay. Picture yourself on a tense spring morning in 1891, when the familiar comfort of 221B Baker Street has been shattered by an atmosphere of mortal danger so palpable that even the normally unflappable Holmes appears genuinely afraid for perhaps the first time in your acquaintance. You've noticed his increasing anxiety over recent weeks, his constant vigilance, and his repeated warnings about dangers that he won't fully explain. Watson. Holmes begins with uncharacteristic urgency, drawing the curtains close despite the bright morning sunlight. I fear our partnership may be approaching its conclusion in ways that neither of us anticipated when we first began these investigations. We are being hunted by a mind so brilliant, so ruthlessly organized, that even I must acknowledge the possibility of defeat. Watson looks up from packing medical supplies with obvious concern. Holmes, you've been increasingly cryptic about these threats you claim we're facing. Who is this enemy that has you so worried? And why haven't you involved the official police if the danger is as serious as you suggest? Think about this moment, detective. What kind of adversary could inspire genuine fear in someone as confident and capable as Sherlock Holmes? What criminal mind could be so sophisticated that the great detective would consider fleeing London rather than confronting the threat directly? Holmes moves to his desk and produces a detailed dossier filled with newspaper clippings, police reports, and his own meticulous notes. For the past 3 years, I have been tracking the activities of Professor James Moriarty, a man whose intellectual gifts rival my own, but whose moral compass points toward absolute evil rather than justice. Moriarty holds the Napoleon Chair of Mathematics at one of our smaller universities, Holmes explains with grudging respect. His early academic work was brilliant beyond measure. Treatises on the binomial theorem and mathematical analysis that established his reputation as one of Europe's foremost mathematical minds before his 21st birthday. Watson examines the academic credentials with growing bewilderment. A university professor of mathematics? Holmes, how does someone with such distinguished academic achievements become the criminal mastermind you claim threatens our very lives? The answer reveals the most terrifying form of criminal evolution imaginable. Moriarty's mathematical brilliance allowed him to see patterns and probabilities that escaped ordinary criminal minds. Holmes continues with grim fascination. He applied scientific methodology to criminal enterprise, creating the first truly organized crime syndicate in modern history, a network so sophisticated that most of its activities remain invisible to conventional law enforcement. The scope of Moriarty's criminal empire becomes clear as Holmes describes his investigation. Every unsolved robbery, every mysterious disappearance, every criminal activity that seemed too well planned for ordinary thieves, I began to see connections, patterns, a single organizing intelligence behind crimes that appeared completely unrelated. Holmes pulls out a complex chart showing criminal connections across London. Moriarty doesn't commit crimes himself. He plans them with mathematical precision, then coordinates their execution through a network of specialized criminals who often don't even know they're working for him. He's created a criminal organization that operates like a business corporation. Think about this revolutionary approach to crime, detective. How would applying mathematical analysis and business principles to criminal activity change the nature of law enforcement? What advantages would such systematic organization give criminals over traditional police methods? But Moriarty's true genius lies in his ability to remain completely invisible while controlling everything. Holmes explains with obvious admiration for his opponent's skills. He's created layers of intermediaries, false identities, and elaborate cover stories that make it almost impossible to connect him directly to any specific crime. The personal dimension of their conflict adds another layer of danger. Moriarty discovered that I was investigating his operations and tracking the patterns that revealed his involvement. Rather than retreating or changing his methods, he declared war on me personally. A war that can only end with the destruction of one or both of us. Watson begins to understand the scope of the threat. So this isn't just about solving crimes or bringing criminals to justice. It's become a personal duel between two brilliant minds, each trying to outmaneuver the other in a game where the stakes are life and death itself. Holmes reveals the escalating nature of their conflict. 3 attempts have been made on my life in the past month. A falling brick that missed my head by inches, a runaway carriage that nearly crushed me, and a mysterious fire in my lodgings that was extinguished just in time. Each incident appeared accidental, but the pattern reveals deliberate assassination attempts. But more disturbing still, Holmes continues, Moriarty has made it clear that you, Watson, are also a target. Your association with me has made you a liability in his eyes, someone whose death would serve both to eliminate a witness and to cause me emotional pain that might interfere with my judgment. The investigation that led to this crisis reveals the full extent of Moriarty's power. I managed to penetrate his organization sufficiently to gather evidence that could destroy his entire criminal network. But exposing him would require testimony from criminals who are too terrified to speak against him, and physical evidence that he's systematically destroyed. Think about this dilemma, detective. How do you bring down a criminal mastermind who has covered his tracks so thoroughly that no conventional legal process can touch him? When the law itself proves inadequate, what alternatives remain for those committed to justice? Holmes's plan reveals the desperate nature of their situation. I've arranged for Inspector Patterson to arrest Moriarty and several key members of his organization tomorrow morning, based on evidence I've accumulated over 3 years of investigation. But Moriarty's intelligence network is so sophisticated that he may already know about the planned arrests. That's why we must leave London immediately, Holmes explains with urgent determination. If Moriarty escapes the police net, his revenge will be swift and merciless. Our only chance of survival is to flee England until either he's captured or circumstances change in our favor. Watson's loyalty overcomes his concern for personal safety. If you're in danger, Holmes, then we face it together. I won't abandon our partnership now, regardless of the risks involved. Where do you propose we go, and how long might this exile last? The flight from London becomes a deadly game of cat and mouse. We'll take the Continental Express to Dover, then cross to France and make our way to Switzerland, where the terrain might give us advantages if Moriarty pursues us. But we must assume that every step of our journey is being watched and anticipated. The journey across Europe reveals the international reach of Moriarty's influence. Even in foreign countries, I detect signs of surveillance and pursuit. Moriarty's network extends far beyond London. He has contacts and resources throughout the European criminal underworld. The confrontation that both men have been building toward finally arrives at the Reichenbach Falls in Switzerland. Moriarty appeared as if materializing from thin air, alone and unarmed, but radiating the confident certainty of a man who believes he has already won the ultimate game. Holmes describes their final meeting with a mixture of respect and revulsion. He complimented my investigative skills while explaining that my continued existence posed an unacceptable threat to his operations. He offered me a choice, death by his hand or mutual destruction that would eliminate us both as factors in the criminal underworld. The moral complexity of their situation becomes clear. Moriarty argued that his criminal organization, while admittedly evil, imposed order and discipline on London's chaotic criminal elements. Without his controlling influence, he claimed, crime would become more violent and unpredictable. Watson receives Holmes's final letter explaining the impossible choice he faced. I could not allow Moriarty to continue his criminal empire, knowing that hundreds of innocent people would suffer from crimes he would orchestrate in the future. Yet the legal system had proven incapable of stopping him through conventional means. The resolution at Reichenbach Falls represents the ultimate sacrifice. Holmes chose to grapple with Moriarty at the edge of the waterfall ensuring that even if he couldn't survive the encounter, Britain's greatest criminal mastermind would be eliminated along with him. The aftermath leaves London's criminal underworld in chaos. With both Holmes and Moriarty gone, the delicate balance between crime and detection has been shattered. Lesser criminals attempt to fill the vacuum left by Moriarty's organization, while the police struggle to maintain order without Holmes's assistance. Watson faces the devastating task of chronicling the end of their partnership. The loss of Holmes represents not just personal tragedy, but the silencing of the one voice that could speak effectively for justice against the most sophisticated forms of criminal enterprise. Years later, criminal historians would recognize the significance of this confrontation. The duel between Holmes and Moriarty marked the end of an era when individual brilliance could stand against organized crime. Future law enforcement would require institutional resources rather than lone detective work. The case also demonstrated the evolution of criminal methodology. Moriarty's systematic approach to crime foreshadowed the rise of organized criminal syndicates that would dominate the underworld throughout the 20th century. So tell me, detective, did you understand the moral necessity of Holmes's final sacrifice? What does this confrontation teach us about the limits of legal systems when facing criminal genius? And most importantly, how do we balance the requirements of justice with the human cost of achieving it? This ultimate mystery reminds us that some battles can only be won through sacrifice, and that the greatest victories sometimes come at the highest personal price. Holmes's willingness to sacrifice his own life to eliminate Moriarty demonstrates that true heroism lies not in personal glory, but in the willingness to pay whatever price justice demands. The final problem also reveals that criminal evolution requires corresponding evolution in detective methods. Individual brilliance, no matter how exceptional, may not be sufficient to combat systematically organized evil that operates on an international scale. As we conclude this series chronicling Holmes's greatest cases, we're left with the profound question of whether justice can survive in a world where criminal minds grow increasingly sophisticated while legal systems struggle to adapt. The empty chair at 221B Baker Street stands as a testament to both the power of individual dedication to truth and the ultimate cost of confronting absolute evil. The game, as Holmes would say, is ended. But the principles he fought for, truth, justice, and the protection of innocent lives, remain as relevant today as they were at the Reichenbach Falls. The methods may change, but the eternal struggle between good and evil continues, and we who remember Holmes's example must carry forward his commitment to ensuring that justice prevails, whatever the personal cost may be. But wait, fellow detectives, could this truly be the end of our greatest detective story? The empty chair at 221B Baker Street may not remain empty forever. Sometimes, when hope seems lost and justice appears to have died with its greatest champion, the impossible becomes possible. Join me next time as we begin a new chapter in our chronicles with The Empty House, where we'll discover that death itself may not be able to silence the world's greatest consulting detective, and where the most shocking return in literary history will prove that some legends are too powerful to be destroyed, even by the ultimate sacrifice. The game, my dear Watson, may be far from over.